Here is a look at your gap and go trades for the week of May 28th through the 31st. I will go over price targets for you on the 5-minute time frame, have a gap recap, and update the chart as well. Hi everyone, it's Dow on the Dow. First up is CVS. We ended the week at $55.54, down 0.20%. To the north side from where we are takes us back to the middle of the trend and resistance and a potential take profit area, 56.08. VWAP is at 56.05. To the north side of that and another level of resistance, 56.77, 57.12, and 57.46. To the south side at one level of support, 55.39, 55.04, and 54.69. Now for your gap recap. We have a gap that will be carried into this week that I'm tracking, and it will take us to $67.77. I don't know where it's going to close, but we are very far away from that channel. We are not in the channel, not in the zone, but something to be aware of, and it starts at 56.77. I have been tracking it since Tuesday, April 30th. Still in play, but note we are in a downward channel. And look at this, we wicked all the way up to $59 and roughly 74 cents. When I last talked about price, we were at 57.68. And of course, the sell-off. It's the wicks that get you either to the upside or to the downside. They move so quickly, it's hard to get in. You get stopped out, whatever it may be. But if you are trying to take profit, I mean, it's so hard to catch the ride. You don't know when it's going to fall, but it will fall. Price will never stay up this high without also going back to the middle of the trend and basing. But congratulations if you made some money off of this wick right here. The next one is SLB. We ended the week at $46.24. Note the downward channel we are still in on the 5-minute time frame. Here are your price targets. Resistance, 46.55, 47.03, 47.48. VWAP is at 46.34. To the south side, 45.63, 44.68, 44.24, and 43.75. And note the upper band and the lower band, when you play the VWAP, it's much tighter. Whereas if you're playing the linear, you've got a lot more room to breathe. And that's where I like to play and do my swing trades. Looking left for your gap recap. This gap is still in play. I will extend it into this week. Again, I don't know where this is going to actually fill, but we are going farther away from it, so I will not anticipate it to fill next week whatsoever. That is a miracle if it does. But price was at 48.59 at the beginning of the week, and now we're at 46.24. HYG, we are at 77.09. Hit Option R to reset this. We are at resistance, so I will anticipate a sell-off as people take their profits and they run and they lock in and they leave. To the north side, another level of resistance, 77.19, 77.29. VWAP takes us back to 77.01. The middle of the trend, 76.88, 76.68, 76.58, and 76.48-ish. I do not anticipate us to get down here or here, but maybe with the wicks we might. But in general, possibly down to -2 since we are in a downward channel still. And for your gaps. This is a carryover, touching at 77.55. We're not there. Getting closer though, because it starts at 77.35. But I don't think that's going to hit, well, definitely not on, there's no way it's going to close out on Tuesday. It could, but I don't think so, touch 77.35 unless we do the wick thing again. All right, I got sidetracked. So did I give you, oh no, the gaps, yes. Okay, so the gap is 77.35, and then we have this gap that formed, and that will start at 77.18, closing out at 77.26. And then what's going on with this one? All right, this is a carryover gap, and we touched right there. Just want to double check that. Oh no, we didn't. It's more like we're right here. Sometimes you have to extend it to really see the levels better. So we gapped up. I anticipate a gap to the downside, going short, filling at 77.01, and we touched. So this is no longer a threat to our account to the south side. There are obviously many other threats. And we hit here and then fell back down to support with a runoff. And now I'm going to anticipate another sell-off, but then correct itself eventually. Next one is Nike. We ended the week at 91.75. To the north side, resistance 92.26, 92.56, and 92.85. Back, well, VWAP is at 91.83, back at the middle of the trend, 91.69, 91.10. This gap forms to the south side at 90.92. Closes out right near -3 standard deviations. Right there is roughly 90.81. The gap closes out at 90.52. And then this little guy right here, well, I shouldn't say little, takes us down all the way to 89.20. And we are in a downward channel. And if this continues its path, we could touch on, Tuesday. Next up, NEO. Let me fix this. I am only checking out this movement right here for the week, Tuesday through Friday. We ended the week at 483, up 0.63%. VWAP is at 482. One level of resistance, 495, 508, 521. To the south side, back at the middle of the trend and the baseline, and support 469, 444, a gap forms at 440, 431, and another level of support 419, and 413 closes out that gap and is also support. Looking left for your gap recap, we have nothing from this week, and this week we did get a gap that formed to the upside. It will close out at 523, but note we are going in a downward channel. And then we have this gap to the south side at closing out at 413. We could definitely touch this if we continue our path. And then we have other gaps to the upside, but we're not in that channel, not in the zone, not even close. Pfizer, next one. We ended the week at 28.88, up 0.66%. We are at the middle of the trend and the baseline, and from where we were, this has turned into resistance. $29.48, $29.77, $30.06. To the south side, VWAP takes us to $28.77 in the blue, $28.30, $28.01, $27.71. Now, looking left, we have this gap that is a carryover, and look at that. We touched right here. That is no longer a threat to our account to the south side. Obviously, there are other threats. We went down even more, and then we ripped up. Sometimes we just never make it to this line, and sometimes we wick all the way down. You just never know. Check out the RSI as well. I could just trade off of the RSI. It is so helpful. Now we have this gap. Oops. Let's make this a little bigger and move that. Oh, there we go. All right, this was a carryover that I forgot to mark out from this week. Oh, well, that's okay. And we touched to the upside right about there at 28.92. So we're done with that gap. And then this gap that I have been tracking. Oh boy, look at this for Pfizer. Look at this. Oh my goodness. Just goes on and on and on. I'm going to have, oh, there we go. Say, go to a bigger time frame to see it. December 1st, 2023. Great, huh? Well, at least we're in an upward channel finally with Pfizer. Where am I? So this is a gap that, again, is a carryover. I'll extend it into this upcoming week. We have not touched that, so it's still in play. This gap developed to the upside, and it could fill by Wednesday if we continue our upward journey. Closing out at 29.54. That one closed. Okay. So we got that big gap and a baby gap within that gap, and that's it. And then obviously we have gaps to the south side. You need to go wide. When in doubt, pull out. But we are going farther away from that gap and that gap. Oops. And here is your public service announcement. And then there is another gap to the north side, but since we are not close, I will not talk about that right now because I don't want this video to go longer than it already is. Okay, I think I'm done with everything. TLRY. Option R, reset that so you can see it better. Again, I'm tracking this week, this measured move right here, okay? And unfortunately, TLRY still going down. So we are at VWAP right now. To the north side of that, and another level of resistance, 186 and 187. To the south side, back at the middle of the trend and the baseline and support, 182, 180, 179, 177 for another potential buy-in area. And I will need to extend this gap. Ignore the horizontal lines. Those are previous support and resistance. This will close out at 212. The beginning of the week, we were at 198, and now we're at 185, unfortunately. SOFI. We ended the week at 692, excuse me, up 1.32%. VWAP takes us to 694. And that will be resistance and another level of resistance, 699. Ignore the pink line, 705, 710 to the south side, 687, 675, 670, and 664. Looking left for your gap recap, we have this gap play. I'll extend that. Touches at 744. Unfortunately, we're going farther away from that. And this little baby gap opened up, but it will close out. If you play -2 and 2 standard deviations, that should take care of that. I will extend it into this week. I have no idea where it's going to touch. I'll clean up the chart next week. And to the north side, 786, and tons of other gaps to the upside. Next one is Boeing. Hit Option R to reset this for me. Whoops. We ended the week at 174.52, up 1.34%. To the north side, 176.85, 179.71, 182.71. VWAP takes us back down to 172.42. The middle of the trend and the lower channel of VWAP, roughly 171.05. It says 170.77, close enough. 165.21, 162.24, 159.27. Now for your gap recap, we have this gap to the south side at 171.58, and we touched right there. No longer a threat to our account to the south side. And note, if you watch my gap and go trades, this is the 25th week that I've done it, and I sound the same. Trading is not complicated. If you look at something over and over again, you will see a pattern. And I'm just telling you what the pattern is. What goes up must come down, and that gap closed out to the downside. It went up, and granted, this one's a baby one, and there are many other gaps for Boeing to the upside because you know we've tanked. We started the week at 184.95. Now we're down to 174.52. Now there's this. Oh, did it touch? Yep. Okay. So this gap opened up last week, and we also touched to the upside. So we went down, closed up right here. Boom. Done. And then note the slight bounce here at support up to resistance, and now we're just grinding sideways and consolidating. But there is a gap here that will close out eventually at 198.51. Many other gaps. Intel. What the heck happened? Oh, there we go. TradingView is slow, just caught up with me. We ended the week for Intel at 30.72, up 2.13%. To the north side, we are at VWAP, basically. 30.96, 31.34, and 31.70. To the south side, at the middle of the trend, and support 30.24, at least one level of it, 29.50, 29.11, and 28.73. Now for your gap recap. This gap opened up and takes us down to roughly 30.51. We closed, no longer a threat. We went down even more. We bounced up slightly. We fell below the gap closure, bounced back up, fell back down again, and then bounced back up. I just got a text. From one of my tenants. So I've got to hurry up and respond to her. And that gap closed to the south side at 31.30. And let me delete the price. And there's this gap to look forward to once we reverse, but we're not there yet. We are still in a downward channel, but that will take us to 30. Well, it touched at 31.95, closes out at 34.95. Dash is the next one. All right. So we ended the week at 112.83, up 2.21% to the north side, 113.75, 114.80, and 115.85 to the south side, middle of the trend and the baseline, 111.66, 109.56, 108.53, and 107.50. We had this gap develop last week, so this will be a carryover. If we hit this level, I will anticipate a bounce off of that as well. But obviously, as you can see from the other charts, that we could touch this support level and then touch this one and then bounce off of that. Now the gap to the upside is right here. I'll extend it, taking us up to 127.01. And when I track these gaps, I point out the gaps to the south side, but I'm tracking the ones to the upside. And if they close, then I remove it and pick another ticker. But I like to point out the gaps to the south side when I see them for you, because that is a danger to our account that you should be aware of. The next one is TSLY. We ended the week at 15.32. Ignore the pink lines. Those are my previous buy-in areas. All right, we are here to the north side, 15.45, 15.61, 15.77 to the south side. Well, VWAP is at 15.18, 15.12, 14.81, 14.64, and 14.88. Now, this gap is an extension from a previous week. I mean, look at that. And we are in a downward channel, unfortunately, but obviously you can get to resistance and then sell off, continuing that downward trend, making lower lows. All right, so that's still in play. This one is still in play, down to 14.58. All right, this gap, that takes us to 15.09. Touched right here, yay. So that gap is done. And then we ran up to resistance, fell off at support, tried to rebound here at resistance again, and then fell through, and then boom, bounce at support. And the cycle repeats itself, and I repeat myself. And this little bugger here, oops, Command Z, this one that has been extended, touched right here. So that is done. So we started that off at 15.40, delete, and closed out at 1548, delete. Now, as for this one, still in play, and that will begin for us at 1545 roughly, closing out at 1555. And then this one touches at 1592, and then we've got other ones. I'm not going to even draw the chart because we are going farther away from that. And then this one to the downside is an extension. I don't know where it's going to end, but 1458, and then this one 1448, closing out at 1319, which is a much better buy-in than where we are now. So if you have patience, we could potentially get there, but you're going to have to fight for it because it's not going to just give it to you. It's going to whip you around and go up as well. Tesla. We ended the week at 179.24, up 3.17%. To the north side, 181.21, 183.68, and 186.18. VWAP takes us to 178.02, 176.47, 171.66, 169.19, and 166.78. For your gap recap, let's start with the gap to the south side. That will start at 159.76. We won't get there most likely until the following week, and if we continue only in the downward channel. Okay, as far as this gap, oh, I drew it out for myself earlier. Okay, no, this is the previous 2 weeks ago. So that's done. This one's done also. This one opened up and will touch beginning at 183.77, and then we have other ones to look forward to. But again, we are not in that channel, not in that zone, not even close, but something to be aware of. And we started the week at 186.60 and ended the week at 179.24. Bummer. Next up is Rivn. Option R. We ended the week at 10.44, up 4.92%. To the north side, 10.60, 10.79, 10.97. The middle of the trend and VWAP takes us to 10.24. And if I'm playing VWAP, I am not a buyer here, whereas most people are. I would be trolling for down here, and sometimes you never get there, so then you're missing out on a potential trade. But I play pretty conservatively because I try to wait for price to come to me because I don't need it. I have so many stocks, so I have to get it at a much better price. And I'm a buyer down here. Beginning levels there. Let's see, this gap starts to the south side at 10.04, closing out at 9.97, 9.87, 9.69, and 9.50. Note we are in a slight upward channel, just a very gradual one, finally, because this thing is beating us up. So I need to extend that into the week. This one takes us to 11.18. And then this bopper here, 15.33, and starts at 12.25, but not in the channel, not in the zone, not even close yet for next week, but that will extend out. And let me reset this again. We started the week at 10.50 ended the week at 1044, but note the high there and then the sell-off down here to where we are. All right, that is a look at your gap and go trades for the week of May 28th through the 31st. I will update this again at the end of the week. And if there is a ticker you would like me to go over, please let me know and have a great trading week.